Hello and welcome to my channel, Re-Vera. How's everybody doing today? Let me know if everything's sounding all right. And let's change up the feed. Bam. Hello. So yeah, it's been a crazy couple of days. Yesterday we were on our way to go to dog obedience school. And my wife had taken one of the dogs. We have two 6-month-old puppies that are trying to get training, and she was taking her out. And hello and welcome to my channel,
right off
Re-Vera.
the leash.
How's everybody doing today? Let me know if everything's sounding all right.
Mistake.
Bam, killed that. Alrighty. Yeah, so let me see if I wonder if the picture came through on my iCloud so I can show you guys. But she got, anyway, she popped off her leash, ran out in the street, got hit by a car, which was really tough. She's good. She's gonna be okay. Her paw got flattened, not quite flattened, but there's a lot of damage. So they're gonna amputate one of her toes, and it was quite the ordeal. I heard the yelping because I was still trying to get the other puppy, and go to the door, and she just like ran to the door on 3 legs, and she's screaming and leaving a trail of blood behind her and squirting diarrhea all over me, and there's blood and diarrhea, and jumped in the car and went to the vet. And so that was last night. There's no prep for today. We went a couple times to visit this morning and then in the afternoon and check on her, and she's gonna be okay. There's it's a lot of tissue damage, but it's not like they're going to have to amputate her leg or anything. And unfortunately, the car just like went over her foot, so it could have been a lot worse. It didn't hit her body. Could have been a lot more damage. But, what do you know? There's Munster out meowing at the door again. Go figure. They know when I'm streaming. Well, obviously they can hear my voice. I'm not usually talking in here, so as soon as they hear me, it's like, oh, you can let us in. They have a doggy door. They just don't like going through it because they're spoiled. They prefer to walk through it, obviously, because they're cats. Let me see if I can pull up this picture. Obviously, everything's super duper slow. Anyway, it'll come up if it comes up. But yeah, that's our dog Lucy. She's a 6-month-old husky, and she gonna be all right. She's just hurt. So didn't prepare as much. I had a thumbnail. I edited and threw some stuff together. But today I was doing admin work while I was at work, and so I can listen to stuff while I'm doing that. And I don't listen to all of Destiny's stuff, but, his thing popped up, and they're typically pretty long, which is, you don't want to be stopping work every 5 minutes to find something else to listen to. So I was like, I'll listen to it, see what's going on. And, I saw that he debates tree of logic. I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. I'm into logic and rationality, and, like, what is he debating the tree of logic on? And wouldn't you know it, this is a perfect textbook case of what we were talking about in my last stream, which it was how epistemology factors into arguments. Because if we have a different way of deriving knowledge than somebody else, that's a fundamental, like, foundational disagreement. And if you waste your time debating peripheral details, you're never going to get anywhere. And this debate is a fantastic waste of time, except for entertainment value for some people, I guess. For Destiny, he gets highly frustrated, like, right away. Like, 5 minutes in, he's sitting here wondering, like, should I even go forward? And probably shouldn't have. But the Tree of Logic is very poorly so named. I should see if I can get a discussion with Tree of Logic. Not familiar with the channel at all outside of this conversation, which I haven't even finished, but it is a textbook case of different epistemologies. So we're going to get into that a little bit and want to kind of skip through it, at least some of it, and show how this works. And I think Destiny does a really good job in certain parts of bringing it back to Okay, let's talk about how we know things. Like, you're accusing me of all this stuff, but how can we know things? And that's what you have to do. Like, there's no point debating other stuff if you have a fundamental disagreement of what counts as knowledge. And that is what this debate shows. So, anyway, we'll get into that. I did want to discuss, in one of my last streams, I talked about how Bernie Sanders is the only one, and I stand by that. It's extremely important. We stand at the precipice of some major crises with the climate and fascism and other things, and we need somebody who's willing to fight for the people and stand up for what he believes in, and regardless of whether the Democratic establishment is on his side or against him, regardless of whether oligarchs or donors are on his side or against him, needs to stand up and get some stuff done. And Bernie is the only person who has demonstrated the will to do so and the integrity to do so. The only person. I like Elizabeth Warren's policies. She has not come close to demonstrating a will to fight for the people. She fought on the issue of banking. Pretty much everything else, she's right there with the establishment. She's not willing to call people out. She took big money donors right up until she announced her primary run, and then she's keeping that bank account rolling. And then as soon as if she wins the primary, she's going to go right back to taking the general. So that's not the kind of integrity we need. Because as we talked about, politicians are gaslighting you. So the most important thing isn't what politicians say, because they're gaslighting us. It's what they've proven they're willing to do. It's their record. And Bernie has been on the right side of every issue forever. So these cats will not shut the heck up. So I'm going to have to go get them. And I guess I'll show them to you. So just a second. Really, monster? Really? Why you gotta be all loud like that? Okay, you gotta come say hi to some people. If you're gonna interrupt my stream, the least you can do is say hi to some people. Okay? Some people want to see you because you're super cute. You hear him purring? Yep. That's him saying thank you for letting me in. Yep. Yes, monster. Come on, look at the camera. Look at the camera. It's like, it's a bright light. What are you doing to me? What are you doing to me? I just want to go in the bedroom. Relax. I don't want to hang out with you. Rat. Okay, that's the kitty. I thought I heard two cats. We'll see if Haley comes by and wants to talk about some stuff. Okay, here we go. We got some pictures up. Yep. Doesn't look like I'm doxing myself too bad over here. Should probably delete my Facebook tab. Alrighty. So this is the poor puppy. Yep, there she is in the vet when we were visiting her. She's got her little IV in, and that's her leg that's all fucked up. You're going to have to amputate a toe. It's all swollen. But they're taking care of her. And this was the only time in the 15 minutes she had her head up. She pretty much collapsed right after that. And she was just laying there, kind of out of it, on lots of pain drugs. Poor puppy. But anyway, she was very glad to see us. She thought we'd left her behind. I'm sure the other dogs all think she got killed because she came running up to the other dogs all bleeding everywhere, left blood all over the floor. And then we took her away and they haven't seen her since. So, super sad. Poor baby. Do I have a picture of her before the accident? I don't know if I have. It was a really good picture that my wife took, and I don't think it's saved in my iCloud, so whatever. Anyway. Alrighty. Well, let's just get going on this. By the way, I have the new chair here, so I apologize for all the squeaking, but we got a new chair here, and it's in a box all over the place. Some assembly required, naturally. But that will be here all put together for the stream on Friday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So I stream 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time Friday, Monday, Wednesday. And yeah, we're going to cover a lot of topics, and let me know what you want to talk about. Hey, Dorian, welcome in. What's been up with you? Did you see my puppy? It's very sad. All right. Okay, so let's listen to some of this stuff. And yes, I know I'm on a diet. With the puppy issues, I've missed the last couple days. I think the other cat's now at the door. So I'm gonna get this playing. And
none of your business.
You don't fucking even own a rifle. Oh my god, I mean, it's the standard Republican. She's never shot before. I guarantee you, Craig, she has never fucking held a fucking gun in her life. Hello.
Hey.
What's up?
Nothing much. How are you?
I'm doing great. Okay.
Listen how reasonable it starts.
We are going to talk about police brutality, police, and everything dealing with the black community. With that in mind.
Okay, we're talking about police brutality. Okay.
Yeah. I don't think you remember me, so do you mind if I give you a little rundown of who I am? Because when you all hear about a right winger, you assume that I'm like that heifer, Candace Owens or Anthony. I love the Ku Klux Klan because they gave my grandmammy and grandpappy Christmas gifts. I'm nothing like them, and so.
Okay. Oh wait, real quick. I'm not sure if you know this, but I'm streaming now too, right? You know that. You're aware of that.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm aware of that. Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So I am an independent right winger, and I did like Trump. Just for the record, I'm not a mega cultist. I didn't take Trump's presidency seriously. I hate Hillary Clinton. And so as of right now, when I used to support President Trump, I was thinking that, oh man, he's really going to come through for us. And after a while, I realized that he's not a Republican at all. He's.
Hey, Dorian. So this is Destiny debating Tree of Logic. And I thought this was insanely relevant for the moment because we were talking about epistemology in our last stream and how important it is in smashing people in debates. And this is like a textbook case of it. At certain points, Destiny does a decent job of bringing it to where it needs to go, but he doesn't stick on it. Like I think you have to, because if you don't make progress on those foundational points of what is knowledge and what is not knowledge, then you have, why would you talk about something else? You're never going to agree. So I mean, he just kind of like, whatever, let's just move on. And sure enough, doesn't go anywhere. But
more of a Democrat than anything. And he brought a bunch of libertarian.
Yeah, so she's unironically arguing that Donald Trump is a Democrat in disguise and not Republican enough for her, which, wow. Okay. I mean, she claims that at one point that he brings in Bernie Sanders bros.
And Bernie Bros with him, and they just completely just saturated the right, and it doesn't even. I even that's what made
ever makes it to you.
So
but you think Trump isn't a Republican?
Absolutely not.
Wait, so I'm really.
Tree of Logic. I need a citation on that shit. Come on now. Which Bernie Bros you bringing in?
Curious. On what major policy points does Trump break from Republicans?
Well, first of all, let's talk about what's going on right now. Name me one Republican president that's all about gun control. Trump has signed the bump stock ban, which allowed the ATF to redefine what the bump stock is. Instead of it being an accessory, it decided to be a rifle. That is unconstitutional. And he is very, very...
I don't know how long I'll listen to this, but they get into it right away, and you quickly see it break down on epistemology. What is knowledge? And that's what I wanted to get to, because if you're debating conservatives, you have to understand that's the difference. That's why we have different ways of looking at things. That's why we always think the other person's dishonest, which they throw that around a lot. And I don't necessarily think Tree of Logic is being dishonest. It looks like really bad faith debating, but in her own brain, I think she's being consistent.
Very pro red flags. I'm that right there. Just talking about it makes me very angry when He's talking about red flag gun law confiscation. And then he's talking about some bullshit with we did common sense background checks and intelligent background check. What the fuck does that mean? And it's like, and then when it had the mass shooter up there in Virginia, the mass shooter used a suppressor, which some of you all may know is a silencer. And then assholes talking about, well, I don't like suppressors either. We should think about banning suppressors. And I'm like, this man has done more against my gun rights, my Second Amendment, than Clinton and Obama put together. That's just one. Let me give you another one. He signed the omnibus bill. Are you familiar?
That's probably true. Well, I don't know. I think Clinton actually did pass some stuff, but the Obama sure as heck didn't do anything. So, I mean, I haven't researched it. Maybe he did something, but he didn't do much. And that's because Democrats pretty much suck at getting stuff done. And it also proves how dumb all the Republican talking points were that Obama's going to come get your guns. We were hearing that for most of a decade. So, you know, thanks for admitting that he didn't, I guess.
Familiar with that happened on February the 15th?
Okay, wait. Can we go through these one at a time instead of
Yeah, sure.
laying out a million points? So firstly, the bump stock ban is like such an incredible...
Hey, Jazzer. Yeah, I have it at 1.5. I can slow it down when we get to some more important points if you want, as just kind of introductory. But this bump stock ban, why don't I slow it down for this? Because this is where we start seeing it break down along epistemological lines very quickly.
Incredibly niche part of the gun market that it's not really relevant at all.
So what?
Well,
so what? Why?
Okay, wait.
Just
Can
because
I please? Can I?
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. So you presented the argument as like Trump is all about anti-gun stuff or whatever.
Yes.
The first point of evidence you brought me is banning one of the most niche accessory. I didn't even know what a bump stock was.
Okay. So, it's important to realize with Trump, like, if you don't understand, I don't know what the hell you're doing, but he talks out of both sides of his mouth. Like, he's on the record as being for universal health care, and yet he's all about killing Obamacare. Like, he's talked on both sides of his mouth on almost every issue. Like, you can find tweets or comments of him in public on both sides of virtually any issue. So the fact that he's sounded anti-gun at points, yes. So what? Look at the policies he signed. Like, he banned bump stocks. Big whoop. But he said he was going to pass a gun. He was going to like pass red flag laws and universal background checks, and he was making sounds like that. And then one talk with NRA, and that ain't happening. So anyway, that point will be made.
Until the Las Vegas stuff happened. This is a super niche accessory that not many people know or care about. Like, it's like a fun thing to have on a gun, and it's kind of fun, but you're not like really impacting guns at all. Okay.
Yes, it does, because, okay, first of all, just for transparency, I don't and would not use a bump stock because it's not accurate. You can't shoot accurately with those things on the side of your rifle.
You can't shoot accurately with a bump stock on?
No, you cannot.
You can shoot pretty accurately with a bump stock.
No, you can.
Okay, we have our first disagreement. So, well, this is where they start like actually debating. Obviously, Destiny disagrees with everything else you said too. Yes, Dorian, I thought that Clinton signed something like that. But anyway, yeah, Obama didn't do much. Here, let's just let it play out a little bit further. But obviously, Destiny's saying you can be pretty accurate with bump stocks. And it's amazing how we get here, because a lot of times when you're in a debate with somebody, the red herrings just keep flowing with conservatives and people you have strong worldview differences on, because you just these things come out, you disagree, and you just want to talk about it. And it's really a trick. Like, red herring is a trick. It's like everyone chases the red herring. That's why fishing lures are often red, because fish actually do chase red little herring fish. So when you see this little red herring come out, probably not a great idea to follow it along. Like, let's stick to the core issues and not waste our time. But it's a perfect example of what I wanted to talk about.
Have you done it?
You can see people do it. Yeah, it's not that hard.
Wait a minute. Excuse me. What? Have you done it?
Me personally, no.
Then you can't speak from experience.
Okay, have you been...
Epistemological difference. Tree of Logic is saying if you haven't done it personally, you can't know. Okay, so she has personal experience very high on this epistemological priority list here, and that's an important issue.
Been president before? Wait. Have you been president before? Oh, well then you can't say anything about Trump. Oh, I guess we just ended the whole conversation.
Okay, so it's a good rebuttal, and he's demonstrating how the epistemology she's presenting right off the bat. He's demonstrating why it fails by showing another example where it fails. Like, if you can't apply this mode of thinking consistently, then it's not reliable, and you shouldn't rely on it so much. It's pretty basic. She is calling it a false equivalence. She does this a lot. She uses logical terms, but she doesn't use them properly. It's a perfectly fair comparison. We're talking about an epistemological issue of how you can know knowledge. And she's saying, well, you haven't shot it, so how do you know? He's relying on other experts who have talked about it. Like if you read, gun experts and what they say, like that's pretty legitimate. And she's disagreeing. And so he brings it to a different mode of thought as a perfectly reasonable comparison.
Didn't we?
You are famous for the false comparison,
no,
dude.
hold on. No.
Suck at false comparison.
Oh,
you want to sit here and say, I shot...
Very triggering to Destiny to be accused of bad debate tactics, because everyone accuses him of that. And I don't see it very much. Like, this is perfectly fair.
Hold on.
It's too early to get this mad.
I own rifles. I own guns.
That's great. I own rifles and I own guns too.
Stop being triggered. I'm
not triggered right now. You're the one saying the real dumb shit.
Accessory.
Yeah, maybe you suck shit at shooting then. I don't know, dude. That's on you.
So my thing is, if I have the experience of shooting a rifle with a bump stock on and you don't, which one of us has more experience about talking about the bump stock and how accurately it shoots?
The bump stock?
You never shot the damn thing, so how do you know it shoots
because
accurately?
You can watch others.
Because you saw somebody do it? Just because you saw somebody give a blowjob, does that mean you know how to do it?
So we have this really great thing in society where we can learn from other people. We don't have to actually experience everything, ourselves in order to know whether or not something is possible. So for instance, when I get into an airplane and I have a guy lift off and land and somebody asks me, do you know if this guy knows how to land the plane? And I go, yeah, I think he probably does. Why?
This is a really good rhetorical practice. He's trying to find an area where she practices the correct epistemology and, trusts the expert opinions and whatnot, so that he can then demonstrate that she already does this, and this is... And so you really agree with me. Like, you're not practicing this way of thinking where everything has to be personal experience, so you don't buy it. Nobody does that. But we'll see where that goes.
Why? Have you landed a plane before? I'm not going to make these weird, vague, claims to experience or whatever. So based on every other person that I've seen that knows about guns and has made videos about talking about bump stocks, it seems like they're fairly accurate for what you would expect a fully automatic rifle to fire like. Now, does this mean you're going to be, pinging fucking targets at 100 yards, full auto with a bump stock? No, but you're not doing that on a fully automatic rifle anyway, okay?
So let's use your airplane example.
I don't even want...
You're seeing someone land an airplane and you're just assuming they can land. But my question to you is, just like this bump stock being accurate, is have you landed a plane before? The answer is no.
No, but I don't need to land a...
She won't even buy into that. She's like, you don't know. You haven't landed a plane. Okay, so I don't know how much of this I want to listen to. This goes on for a while.
How do you know?
And then they try to get to other topics.
Shoot a gun.
Wait, I don't need to
know how to shoot accurately. You're talking like a libtard who's like, I know all about guns. All I gotta do is put bullets here, aim, push, and pull. I do so many stories.
Well, what kind of rifles do you own?
None of your business.
You don't fucking even own a rifle. Oh my god! I mean, it's the standard Republican. She's never shot before either. I guarantee.
Now that on Destiny, like he does this for entertainment because he got to do something, keep from killing yourself. But that obviously I think isn't a fair accusal to make her, because just because she's not willing to name what weapons she owns, that probably means she's a paranoid conservative who doesn't want the government coming and taking them away. It doesn't mean that she doesn't own a gun. So it's not a fair conclusion to draw.
guarantee you, Crouch, she has never fucking held a fucking gun in her life. Oh
$500 if I show you.
the next topic. No, it's all good, dude.
To get a video right now.
I don't give a fuck, dude. I don't.
Don't make no false. Don't make any false accusations.
You literally just made a false accusation against me, saying I'm a liberal that doesn't know anything about fucking guns. What do you think I am? First of all, I am pro.
You don't know how. You don't even know shit about shooting a rifle when you said I never shot one with a bump stock. So my question is that you never shot a rifle with a bump stock. So how the fuck would you know if it's accurate or not? Because you've seen someone?
Because you can listen to other firearm experts and see what they say.
Jobs because you've seen someone do it?
No, but we're not asking about.
What?
Stop!
Oh my God! Really? How is that possible?
You are making.
That's a false comparison, obviously, because there are certain things you could do. A blowjob, for example, being one, where watching it and listening to experts might not tell you everything there is to know about how to do it, but issues of accuracy with guns is not one of those. That's an empirically demonstrable arena of reality. So we can take different guns and we can shoot them with competent experts and we can compare the results. And this is done all the time. This is how we can know empirically that the AR-15 is more accurate than the AK-47. So, advocates of the AK-47 will make other arguments for it, but they're not going to say it's more accurate than an AR-15 because it's not. And everyone agrees with that. Even if you haven't personally shot both of them, you still agree with that because that's the empirical demonstrated reality. You don't have to personally have experience firing them. And this comes up all the way through here. So this is one epistemological difference they have. She heavily relies on personal experience. And this theme comes up a lot of times in this discussion. And obviously, Destiny is perfectly willing to look at experts and statistics and other forms of evidence. Now, I'm probably going to skip through some more of this, because there's another epistemological difference they had that I wanted to talk about too.
Making a false equivalency after accusing me of doing one. If you were to ask me, can you fire a bump stock well because you've seen other people do it? I would say, well, no, of course not. I don't think I can fire one well just because I've seen other people. That wasn't the question. The question was whether or not bump stocks were relatively accurate. Was whether or not they could shoot accurately. I don't know if I could shoot accurately with a bump stock. I've never used them before.
Shut the fuck up about shooting accurately if you've never done it.
That's not the question.
Don't sit up here and tell me that
the question.
That if it shoots when you never shot it before.
The debate topic is not whether or not I personally can use a bump stock to fire a rifle accurately.
That a bump stock is not accurate. You said it is. I said, how the fuck would you know? Did you shoot one? No. Then you can't speak from it.
Okay.
Down for. Handle guns. He said, I've never touched a gun before. I think the bullet goes here.
That was being pro-gun control. Like, what the fuck does that mean? I actually shot, one with, I shot rifles with the bump stock attached with the.
I know how to fire a bump stock.
No, I said accurately. No, you challenged me. Go rewind the video. Yeah, you said
she does a lot of accusing him of dishonesty when it's pretty clear. I mean, he makes his point well. And she's arguing some other point. It's kind of weird. Yeah, so it doesn't really go anywhere because it's kind of irrelevant. Like they get it. That's one thing. Destiny, he's really good at debating generally, but he does chase the red herring. So like the bump stock, who gives a shit? The point was, is Trump a Democrat? Like, bump stocks, like if you don't understand why a Republican might pass a bump stock ban when it's a niche accessory that even the NRA was not supporting the idea of bump stocks. They were like, yeah, maybe we should ban those because we just had the worst mass shooting by a single shooter in, I think, world history. Like it was really, really bad. So I was like, yeah, maybe we should ban those. Nobody even cares about it. So yeah. Let me skip ahead to the next thing they disagree with.
Bump stocks.
I already know that this is not.
See, here's the thing with I have a problem with you, Stephen. You do make false.
She. I think this would categorize as another epistemological difference because she accuses him of a false equivalence anytime he's going for an analogy or some like a legitimate comparison. Like that's how you examine logic is. Okay, so if we apply the exact same mode of reasoning to this other area and it doesn't work, then this mode of reasoning is not valid. Like, that's a perfectly logical way of doing things. But every time he brings up anything that's not strictly exactly the particulars of what she was talking about, she disagrees and accuses him of whataboutism and false equivalencies. And this happens for the next hour.
Comparisons, and you have this ego, and you even admitted that you have this ego, right? I don't even wrong. I will humble myself and say, okay.
And the amazing thing is, as dishonest as she sounds, I understand where she's coming from, because when you believe this way, and this is your epistemological theory that you've never even really thought about, I'm sure it's just like absorbed from your environment and stuff. She thinks she's right, and she's got some cognitive dissonance, and like your subconscious just starts throwing stuff out, and she passes it on. And in her mind, she's not being dishonest, but she sure as hell sounds like it. She gets into a lot of detail about the emails they were sending back and forth, and how he didn't remember everything that they'd emailed back and forth. And he's like, well, you know how many emails I read a day? And she's like, I don't care. It doesn't matter. You should pay attention. It's like, yeah, if you're not willing to accept the fact that reading 500 emails a day versus 1 or 2 affects how much of it you're going to remember, then, you're just not being very reasonable.
I'm wrong. I concede. But, you know what I'm saying?
She's talking here about the importance of truth, which is, my angle. And the point is valid, that you need to be willing to accept when you're wrong. And it's very ironic she's making that point when she refuses to admit she's wrong on anything, no matter how fucking obvious it is.
If you just have to be so right about everything, even when you're wrong, and you just want to play mental gymnastics in order to cater to your audience, then,
we get it.
No, I got so much shit going on right now with you.
And
you're also really pushing emails, and you're telling
yeah, this is the whole email discussion.
Nobody trying to schedule me back email and tell me that I have nobody.
Yeah, he's wondering why he's doing this, because she's a nobody basically, and he doesn't care who she is, and she's expecting him to remember emails from a week ago, and it's like, who cares? Like, can I get a little gratitude that you're on my platform at least? You're doing nothing but yelling at me here, so it's kind of silly.
I don't have time to read through our entire fucking email chain.
Look, and get your dick out of your hands. I don't know who you are. Who gives a fuck if you know who I am or not?
Well, it's relevant.
You goddamn, I don't know who you are. I don't know you.
Try to be accommodating. Yeah, I don't scroll up and read like fucking all the prior.
You a 95-year-old man suffering from Alzheimer's.
How many emails do you think I get a day, dude?
Every word you type.
Come on.
So, I mean, okay. Do you got to go get some pussy or something, and we can
She likes taking it to the personals.
Let's all just calm it down. Let's go back to the very beginning, okay? We're talking on Skype about conservative issues. I think about gun control, right? That's what you said. That's what the title of my stream is. Wait.
Oh, it's not.
Oh, no, it's about police brutality. I'm sorry.
Suffer from Alzheimer's.
Yep, you got me. It's slowly fading away. Okay, police brutality. We started with gun control. Okay. Okay.
I told you.
I don't want to get an education because all the institutions are liberal biased, so that's my bad. Okay?
Seriously. Seriously. Your mind is not in it, and I don't want to have to sit up here and repeat myself. Can I go back to what you were saying in reference to, if you notice, we got into this little pissing contest because you said that you challenged my views on me thinking that Trump is not a Republican but a Democrat in disguise, and I began to give you a list of things he. Oh
yeah, we were gonna start with the bump stock.
Okay.
So let's move. Do you know anything about the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act? I'm not trying to.
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay. You know that was like super supported by like Ronald Reagan. Would you consider him a Republican?
He didn't sign it.
He didn't sign it, but he definitely came out and supported it. He wrote op-eds and shit about like why he's for it.
He didn't sign it. I'm only. But remember my questions, Stephen. I said, name me a Republican president that has signed and pushed
Okay. All right.
more gun control than Trump.
Gotcha. So
Okay.
Trump tried to ban bump stocks, I think.
Okay, so when somebody's drawing the rules, the discourse in an arbitrarily limited fashion, I think you got to call that out. Like, where the hell do you get off saying that you're only willing to talk about presidents who and what they've actually signed versus what they've supported? The fact that Reagan was a very pro the Brady bill is pretty relevant if you're talking about Republican thought generally, which is the point. She's trying to say Trump isn't Democrat. And when the hero of the Republican Party, like the most Republican person, most Republican, like all Republicans look up to Reagan, let's be honest. And you're going to say that the fact that he supported the Brady bill, the most significant gun control bill in modern history, if I'm not mistaken, it sure seems like it, and the fact that he was a supporter of it isn't relevant because he didn't personally sign it. Like, call that out. We're not being honest here. That you are making the discourse far too arbitrarily limited.
Suppressors and
wait. So why did you bring up him supporting red flag laws if he hasn't signed those red flag laws into state?
Well, he hasn't signed it because your side is all on this impeachment trip, which I'm okay for, you know what I'm saying? Because they were supposed to vote on that last week, the impeachment, to say this. Not only will you guarantee definitely take that substance to impeach.
Oh, somebody's sneaking behind his camera. So he talks about, they get into a healthcare discussion that I'm interested in. So let's get off the whole gun control topic and get into another one. Then we'll play probably 10 more minutes of it, and then we'll quit with this. We're not watching 2 hours. Don't worry about it.
Teaching Trump. And so getting back to the...
You realize that Trump almost split the Republican Party in half, right? I don't know if you remember the first year or two of his presidency, all the fighting between him and Ryan and shitting on Sessions.
You ain't gonna never have me sit up here and say Trump did not fuck up the Republican side. That's the reason why you guys are a community like a football and you try to score...
And the Firearm Owners Protection Act that expanded.
Oh shit! Hold on.
It did a little bit. So, for instance, all licensings have to report multiple firearm sales now instead of. Okay, but a bump stock by a single gunman,
me a president who has done anything in support of gun control.
Sure. So here's the Firearm Owners Protection Act. We're not even getting into the types of gun control that Reagan passed when he was the governor of California. Spoiler alert.
That's governor, not president. Goddamn.
So, again, drawing the rules of discourse way too limited. Oh, we don't care what he did when he was governor because he didn't sign it as president.
You hear me say president? Am I speaking English? I know I'm black and you think I'm speaking Ebonics, but I'm speaking English.
Conservatives are glad to pull that race card and then accuse you of doing it.
Go ahead and talk about... I don't even know what the fuck the next...
I was supposed to introduce myself to you so you understand who I am so you can stop assuming
go ahead.
Introduce yourself. Have and what I don't have. So anyway, we talked about... I brought up Trump and everything like that. And, I didn't vote for him, but I was supporting of him. And like I said, when he started doing a lot of things that Democrats do, I just lost interest. But I am on the side that the left has racists and the right has racists too. I do not ignore the fact that not all whites, not all, hashtag not all, but there are racists on the left and racists on the right. But basically, as a black person on the right, white supremacists on the right, they are blatant with their racism. Whereas
it's more subversive or not subversive, but subtle with the left, right?
Very subtle.
Have you ever heard of the bigotry of low expectations?
Yeah.
I thought I was going to skip right to the healthcare discussion, but this is actually really shows another point here because one of my other streams I mentioned, and I think that this isn't obvious to everyone. I don't know. I haven't seen it talked about very much. Maybe it's obvious to a lot more people than I think, but the fact that at a basic philosophical level, conservatives identify with free will, and the left or liberals, the other side of the spectrum, identifies with determinism. And this next discussion is like a perfect example of this. So just pay attention. This is some good stuff.
Wow.
Why did you ask me that?
Or I'm just because I read a lot of conservative stuff, so I'm trying to figure out where all your talking points are going to come from. But
You ain't gonna know my talking points, Greedy. I promise you.
Okay,
You can keep on fishing if you want to.
all right, that's all good. Okay.
But I mean, do you have a low expectation for blacks?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, and so it's lower than who? Whites?
Oh, it's not lower than anyone. I have a low expectation of everybody. I think that in general, I think we have low expectations of people to like outperform their environment. You say the same thing about poor whites. You say the same thing about poor blacks. It just so happens right now there's a lot more poor blacks than there are poor whites. So in terms
You
of
have
like
a
per
low.
capita.
That's not true. You have a low. Let me repeat what you just said. You said you have a low expectation of everyone.
Yep.
You don't have a low expectation of your son.
Yeah, I do. What do you mean?
No, you don't. No, you don't. Because I saw this video of yours that says raising kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was very powerful.
Okay. So so I don't think my kid could like survive or succeed if he was given a shit school, if he had no financial support, if he didn't have access to either of his parents. Like, I don't think my kid would do well then. So I give him at least as much as I can, right?
No. I'm not even talking about that. Totally off. I'm talking about how you talk to your son. You admitted that you don't dumb down your language with your son.
Sure. Okay. Let's define our terms. Let's back up. When I say that I have a low expectation of people, what I mean is when you put people in predictable environments, you get predictable people.
Absolutely.
I don't expect that if you put a bunch of people into an area with shitty housing, shitty food, shitty jobs, that you're going to produce like this great society of amazing law-abiding citizens. I don't think that's going to happen. So when I say like,
So he's determinism. Environment matters. The environment you grow up in matters, and that's why, as liberals, we want to have policies in place that provide equality of opportunity and better education and stuff like this, because we know environment matters.
hey, like maybe black people need a little bit of help with this or that, and someone's like, oh, do you have low expectations? Like, well, I don't expect anybody to like climb out of like the shittiest handout possible, and like all of a sudden everybody becomes like great and successful in society. Like, no, there are people that need help. White people don't need help because we own everything. We don't need any more help. We have everything already.
No white person needs help.
No, there's probably some, but like as a general like class of people, like there have been problems that have targeted not poor people but black people, right? So like these are issues that probably have to be.
Now this is a big difference. I think I disagree with liberals on, and I think hopefully most leftists do as well. And that's splitting things down by identity politics instead of class politics. Because yes, demographics matter, but class matters way more, way more. Way more. So if you're a billionaire black person or a poverty-stricken redneck in a freaking trailer in Alabama, like, which one do you think has more privilege? This is pretty obvious. Class matters a hell of a lot more than any demographics you want to name. Now, that's not to say that there isn't white privilege, because of course there is. There's a lot of different privileges. There's cis privilege and straight privilege and, and different things, and those matter. But not as much as class. And as leftists, we got to talk about class more. We need class consciousness in this country. We need workers uniting across demographics. So the focus on identity politics in the exclusion of class consciousness is very toxic to the left. And we need to watch for that.
Be rectified in some way.
So,
like affirmative action
since he's
or other
doing
policies like
that,
Okay, I was born in Washington, D.C. and raised in one of the most...
Okay, so here we get into her story. And you know what? I'll fast forward through it because it's pretty long. But basically, she comes from this horrible, horrible background in the ghetto, one of the most dangerous places in the country. People getting shot. A bunch of her friends died growing up. She was abused by her mother. All this kind of stuff. And yet she came out of it. She started businesses. She got out of it, and so she thinks other people should be able to as well. Clicking on it in my OBS. That's not helpful.
Violent ghettos in the city at the time. Bruises to achieve a lot. We so fortunate. This is the reason why I wanted to give, because I was told that I have done everything from and exotic dancers to be bodyguards for them. That once I master something, I take a sabbatical and start something new. So when I hear someone like you saying that people like me who grew up poor and disadvantaged can't make it, I really want to get your understanding.
Did he say that? Don't think he said that. I think he's talking about the general society, not individuals.
On how did you come up to that conclusion?
There's like so much ground that I have to cover to do this. But like I had some problems growing up too, okay? So I was pretty much completely left alone by my parents.
So then we get his story. He came from a tough background too. Not as tough as hers, but tough background. And he was cleaning carpets, and he was broke, and his pregnant girlfriend had to drop out of college.
Love America. Every successor that makes it stream. I became a very independent person as a result of it. I don't need external validation for anything.
But then he does the thing of, instead of just focusing on the choices he made that led him to where he is, which is what conservatives do. He also talks about the things that he's lucky on that were not choices. For instance, that his grandparents bought him a PlayStation growing up, so he had access to gaming and was interested in gaming, liked gaming. He talks about the fact that he had a friend who was really good at poker and taught him how to be good at poker, and then he won a poker contest, and that money is what he used to buy his initial streaming setup and computer. So there's a lot of luck involved, and that's the point he's making, that it's not just free will, it's not just free choice. There's environmental factors that are outside of your control that are that are contributing to your success that you're not being aware of.
What I say or do, which is one of the reasons I'm able to deal with so much hate on the internet. But for a lot, because somebody made it and go on to become
make it if they.
Well, you tell me, why didn't they make it?
And this is important. Anytime a conservative is like, well, they need to do this, then you need to ask them, well, why aren't they? So like the common one is, well, black people need to get married more. Their problem is fatherlessness, the black on black crime, stuff like this. And it's like, okay, so why is that stuff happening? And this is something Destiny does, and it seems very good at it.
Well, one of the things I have to say that I'm thankful for.
Wait.
This is I'm going to answer to you. Hold your panties, damn it.
Okay.
Okay. The thing about it is that I am growing up in the hood. You have to be aware of your surroundings, and the best thing about growing up is that I'm able to read people, read their facial expressions, read and get their body language to see if they're going to cause me harm or not. I think my friends that died did not have those skills, and that's why they're not here.
Okay.
And then, go ahead.
I was going to say, none of my friends growing up needed to be able to read people's expressions to avoid getting fucking murdered. That's the difference, right? So like in my area, and this is why I say I have low expectations. I don't think that like all of my white friends were somehow magically able to read people, and that's why they're better off than your dead black friends. I would say like, well, where I grew up, that's not something that you needed to survive. Like that's the difference in environment there. It's not that I have a higher expectation of some group of people than another, just that like if you put people in a given environment, it's usually pretty obvious like what's going to happen. Like some percentage of people are always going to make it. It's going to be a low percentage. Some percentage of people are fucked because most humans just can't survive in that environment, and then you'll get like the middle of the road like expected outcome. So like for instance, like Bill Gates quit high school because he was working on software. Do you think most people that drop out of high school end up becoming like Bill Gates? No, most of them end up becoming, losers, get fucked for the rest of their lives. Some maybe become business owners, very rare, but most of them get fucked for doing it, right?
Okay.
So I guess like my point is that you have to be really careful to not just draw out like a singular story and say like, well, since I made it, anybody could make it. Maybe it's like a little bit more important. It's like, well,
I really never said that. I said, why was I able to? That's what I said.
Well,
and I wanted to listen to your answer, and then that's when I was listening to you share your story, which I appreciated, but you never did answer my question.
which is why did you do it and others can't?
No, why was I able to make it? Just why was I able to make it?
I don't know you personally. It's my guess. Well, what I would say was probably an incredibly lucky combination of maybe some personal biological aptitude helped you towards something, maybe some very specific event happened early on in your life, maybe you had like a lucky intersection of a couple of events. But I mean, like the universe is a crazy thing. I'm sure a lot of things came together that just luckily allowed you to probably to get through. You know, a combination of your own work based on things you had. Like that's my story at least, right? When streaming came about, I was lucky enough that I was good enough at poker to win a tournament, and I bought my first streaming PC because I had a friend that taught me poker. If I didn't have that friend, I probably would have never learned it, and I wouldn't have bought the streaming PC. I was do like really.
I did talk about that, but that's determinism.
My parents that got
Those
heavily compromised based on choosing to deal drugs.
God, I hope you're not being a drug dealer apologist, are you?
I'm not being a drug dealer apologist, but I don't think that groups of people, I guess we can say black people, right? I don't think black people in DC or Baltimore or Detroit are just like, well, we're just like biologically hardwired to deal drugs. I think that it's just a pretty obvious thing when you've got nothing else, when your schools suck, when there's not many good places to work. And when you
Those
feel like,
Negroes got other things to do besides drugs. Stop.
okay, then why do they deal drugs?
Don't do that.
Wait,
Here comes the free choice.
why do they deal drugs then?
Well, first of all, it's the lazy way.
Okay. Why don't more white people do it then?
I'm not white, so I cannot answer for your people. All I can.
They go on about that a little bit, but yeah, I'm white. I can't speak for white people. Like just like this whole concept of I'm white, so I speak for white people, and you're black, you speak for black people is ridiculous.
And I never waited from an historical appreciate. I just
Okay, okay, we can do that. Well, many black people choose to sell drugs.
The culture for one,
Mm-hmm.
laziness for two, and that quick money because when you sell drugs, it's quick. It's very risky money, but it's quick money. Okay.
Okay. So for the first one, you said culture. That's not a choice, right?
It is to me. It is a choice because I rejected black, and that's the reason why I'm not a part of the black community because I rejected the culture. You can either embrace the culture or you can reject the culture.
All right. So why do some embrace the culture? Why don't they all reject it?
Tribalism.
Okay. So tribalism isn't really a choice, right? That's like a biological thing you're kind of born with.
Bullshit.
Okay. Well, now I'm going to ask you then, why don't they reject tribalism?
Because they embrace. It's like saying, why don't somebody wear green instead of blue? It's a choice. They choose to embrace the black culture. I saw the black culture to be toxic, and it was not in my.
See what I mean? Though this debate is a really good, like, real world example of how high level philosophical topics filter down and become relevant in everyday discourse. Because they're having a debate that's really free will versus determinism. They're just not really they're not using that language, but that's what it is. He's talking about the environment. She's talking about choice. And it goes on to some degree, but to me, I think it would have been beneficial to just okay, let's get out of the specifics. Let's talk about free will versus determinism. Why do you think we have these free choices? Are you willing to admit that the environment has a factor in your choices? Or you're not? Let's get into how, the things that, and he does this a little bit, but you need to get into why you're making those choices. Are you just a better person? Are you smarter? Why do you make the right choices and other people make the wrong choices? You think it's just free will? What is that? How do you show what free will is? What does it look like? Why do most people in certain situations make predictable behaviors? Maybe we can't perfectly predict everybody's behavior, but we can predict the majority of a population. So if we put 100 people in a given situation, we can predict what most of them do based on what other populations of people have done in similar situations. Humans are pretty predictable. So if you're going to pretend that we're not predictable and we all have free choices and everything, and there's no consistency to that, you got to be able to back that up. And that's a core fundamental epistemological difference they have, that if they don't counter that, if they don't get over it, they're never going to get anywhere in the conversation. So I think it would be useful to actually move it to a free will versus determinism debate, since that's what you're doing at a more peripheral level anyway.
My best interest, it definitely was not in my best interest as a Black woman. So I rejected the culture.
Yeah,
so therefore, it's all about making a choice. It's their choice.
Yeah,
they decided.
So you understand that for a lot of people growing up that are wealthy, we never have to make this choice, right? So for instance, when I was in high school, nobody had to make the choice to reject a culture that pushes under drugs. If you want a drug deal in my high school where I grew up, man, you had to fuck up a ton. I don't even know where the fuck you would get drugs. I had to get them from other people. That was so fucking out of the norm of what you would ever possibly do, in a private high school. Why would you do that? So we're already starting off on a pretty bad inequality here, right? I've never had the choice to deal drugs growing up. I can't even imagine being given that choice.
And I decided not to do it, and I decided not to date anyone who does it. A lot of Black women in the hood, they want to date ballers because of the cars, because of the bling, because of the clout, because of all of this. But a drive-by shooting is a bitch, and so you sit in that passenger seat and you have a rival gang or a rival drug dealer who want to even up a score. They're going to shoot everyone in that car. So these are choices. People choose to do bad things. People choose to do good things in the hood. People choose to do drugs because it is celebrated materialism.
Okay, I understand everything you're about to say. I don't disagree with you, okay, about people wanting ballers or materialistic or consumeristic drives. What I'm trying to find out is why do more Black people do it?
I think that demonstrated the free will versus...
Yeah, but why do Black people have a bad culture and white people don't?
Determinism. Pretty good.
And I hate going back to slavery. I really do.
Great. Us liberals love going back to slavery. You're going back to my hometown.
So eventually, now she's all of a sudden accepting the environment and history as a factor. So he pushed on that long enough to where she eventually came around.
That shit. I can't stand
fucking preach, dude. I'm about to amen whatever the fuck you say. Hell yeah. Slavery, Jim Crow laws, destroying fucking Black wealth. Hell yeah. All of that shit contributed to a fucked up Black culture. I don't disagree at all. But you're making a liberal argument now, right?
No, I'm going to make the so-called liberal argument until we get to the point where it's still a choice. Okay? It's still a choice. Regardless, because your question was, how did Black culture get so toxic? And
so, she's not wrong. There is choice involved. Certainly. But we make those choices in reaction to our environment. So if you want to start a charity that tries to help people make the right choice, you're providing a new input into their environment that might help people make better choices. Good for you. That's a positive thing you can do to help inspire better choices. But if you're just going to blame people for making bad choices without doing anything to change your environment, you're not going to change anything. You're just making excuses for racists.
And so I said, God damn it, I have to go to slavery. And yeah, of course, I'm not gonna. I told you, I'm not like the other like Candace Owens and Brandon Tatum and Anthony and all these other stupid Negroes talking about, oh, they're so good over here on the Republican side. Come on over here. I'm not like that. I do acknowledge, like I said, I don't have an ego, so I do acknowledge how Black culture got that way.
If you don't think you have an ego, that's your ego talking.
But I still will say to you, it's still a choice, because let's look at the Black immigrants who come here from the islands and from Africa. They have a higher success rate than Native Black Americans.
Okay, that's a boring topic, like Destiny makes the point, she has no citations, but yes, people from other countries that have to cross oceans to get here, those populations of people are much better off. They have more finances, more resources, more education, because you can't get from Africa to the U.S. and move your whole world without having resources typically. So on average, they're going to have a lot more resources. So of course they're going to do better. That's not surprising. And anyway, let me skip through all this.
And them to a school that they have actually, and they start slowly bringing them.
And she disagrees.
Like you have,
and she claims that they're all poor and they work together. But she has no statistics for it.
On like just like as a general point of view.
Come on now.
Policy. Like, what do you want to do? What?
So this is, he's trying to get it to values. What do you want out of a policy? Like, this is a really intelligent place to go. So let's listen to this for a second.
That is racist because he picked you over me. I don't do that.
Listen,
Steven.
that's great if you don't. But what I want to do
is that you are sitting here.
What is your goal at the end of the day when we talk about like, any particular policy? Like, what do you want to do? What is like your broad goal? Like, if I'm enacting a new law or a new policy in the United States, what are you trying to accomplish?
It depends on what area.
On like just like as a general point of view.
Come on now, don't do general.
Or we can say healthcare.
Okay. This is a good one. I would make it mandatory for Zoomers and millennials, because I'm Generation X, to have mandatory some form of fitness and nutrition, so that they will.
So this is what I mean. When you chase the red herrings and you don't address the fundamental philosophical difference you have, it's just going to keep on looping back in. It's just going to keep on popping up and until you actually get it. So she brings it back to personal choice. You want to talk about healthcare? I think we should have our healthcare system be dependent upon the choices you make.
Also learn how to take care of themselves, because for the first time in my life last year, I never and I'm a gym rat, or was a gym rat. I love the gym, and I'm also vegan, but I'm not a cultist vegan. Like, you can eat a bowl. What's happening to me on YouTube?
Cool vegan.
From policing, but all of that combination landed me in the hospital with a staph infection. Now, you ready for this?
Go for it.
When I came out of the hospital, I owed $32,000 for staying there for a week. And I'm the kind of person that said, well, I'm not for, and I don't feel like debating this because I didn't come here to debate this. So I was like, I'm not here for single payer. So I'll go ahead and get on a monthly payment plan. And so in the process of getting the paperwork, they asked me, did I want to fill out a financial aid form? And I was like, oh, yeah, sure.
I'm not for government health care. So I was like, sign me up for a payment plan. But then they said, would you like some government health care? And I said, hell yeah.
And I filled it out, and I think I got $20,000 of it forgiven. And then
yay, big government.
All of a sudden I called to get new payment arrangement, and there's a grant, a federal grant, that once a week choose a person. Now, I believe they choose someone who is not a burden on the medical system, and I think that's the
Do you have a reason to believe this?
reason why they gave me a complete forgiveness, except $2,000 to private physicians. Do you know what I mean? Like, when you go to the hospital, everybody in there is not under the staff of that hospital. You have some private physicians that are working by contract, and therefore they have their own prices. And so I had to pay, which is, paying anyway. Now I don't have to pay $32,000. I mean, instead of paying $32,000, I had to pay $2,000. Cool beans. I would.
Thanks to the government, thanks to Democrats, the Republicans you like vote against all those programs. I guarantee it.
Like a program like that for those who are rewarded. I believe that I was rewarded with medical forgiveness, or the payment to be forgiven, because I take care of my health.
You said because you weren't a burden on the medical system. What if you would have been born with type 1 diabetes? That, I don't want to get into this, but that is preventable. You do know that. Based upon it is. Wait. Remember, I used to own a health business. That's what I don't so let
want
me stop you before you say something really dumb. Okay, hold on.
I don't say nothing dumb. How dare you?
Okay, so
yeah, she is. She is totally. Again, philosophical differences in epistemology. In healthcare, in an actual scientific topic, we're going to see how these differences of what we consider knowledge come into play.
Type 2 diabetes is most closely associated with being obese or overweight, right? Sugar intake causes bad things. Type 1 diabetes is like an autoimmune disease that you're born with,
I know
or
this.
you can develop. How is type 1 diabetes preventable?
Based upon the health of the mother, and also the eating habits of the mother, and the lifestyle of the mother, always reflect on the child, on the baby.
Okay, so firstly, I don't even think that's true. But secondly, even if I granted that to you, how is that the fault of the child? Like, so they're punished for like the sins of the parent?
I didn't say it was the fault. Where did that come from? I didn't blame anybody.
You said it was preventable, but apparently the
Right. And so how did you get from preventable to blame? I said it's
so
preventable.
what I'm asking you for is, you said that you felt like you were rewarded by the healthcare system for your good health, and I said, what if you were born?
If something's preventable and you don't prevent it, there's blame there, right?
As a type 1 diabetic, or that has type 1 diabetes, and you said, well, that's preventable, and then you said if the parents prevent it, so that person then is fucked just because their parents also. I don't even like to grant that.
No,
There's no known way to prevent type 1 diabetes. That's not even true.
If the parent caused it, the parent has to pay for it.
But the parent's not paying for it. The child is paying for it. Also, parents don't cause type 1 diabetes. That's not even true.
Prove me wrong, then.
Yeah, what about the parents who can't pay for it? Like, that's the thing. There's a lot of people who can't pay for it. So then, if the government doesn't step in, the child is paying for it, even if it was the parent's fault. Which it's not, because type 1 diabetes has nothing to do with choices. It's genetic.
You Mr. Search, okay? Prove me.
Oh, wait, I should go back. This is classic.
Depending on.
But the parent's not paying.
Really important in any logical discussion is the burden of proof. If you make a claim, it is incumbent upon you to justify that claim. And if you try to reverse the burden of proof, that is a fallacy. That's not debating in good faith, and probably should have called that out.
The child is paying for it. Also, parents don't cause type 1 diabetes. That's not even true.
Prove me wrong, then.
Prove me wrong. See, whenever somebody says "prove me wrong," they're probably reversing the burden of proof, and that's certainly what she's doing here.
You Mr. Search, okay? Prove me wrong. Prove to me that type 1 and type 2 or any kind of disease is not basically dependent upon. It cannot.
Desi's like, I'm in front of a computer. This is easy. Here we go. Let me Google something real quick.
Cannot be prevented by the parent.
I mean, like, it's an autoimmune disorder. Like, it's like you can't. Like, I don't know how you. I've never heard you can prevent it in your life. This is biting like the second paragraph of this Wikipedia article. The cause of type 1 diabetes is unknown, so we don't even know what causes it right now. However, it is believed to be involved with a combination of genetic and environmental factors. Risk factors include having a family member with the condition of type 1 diabetes. The underlying mechanism involves.
Exactly. There you go. So what?
Wait. Type 1, not type 2. You don't get type 1 from just overeating.
So if you have other people in your family who also have this genetic condition, you have a higher chance of having it yourself. That's not choices of your parents. That's they were also genetically doomed.
It's an autoimmune disorder. It's not an insulin resistance disorder. It's that your body doesn't make insulin disorder.
Show me. I got a question for you and a challenge for you.
Yeah.
Show me. And like I said, I didn't come here to debate this shit, but I want you to show me a baby or a child born from a healthy parent that has type 1 or type 2 diabetes. Show me.
Again, so the differences in what they consider knowledge. He is willing to use experts in science and studies, and she is still stuck on personal experience. Like, I don't personally know parents who were healthy and who had kids who had type 1 diabetes. Therefore, I think it's always unhealthy parents.
Show me.
I mean, I had a friend in high school that was like this. What do you mean?
Show me.
What do you want me to do? Go find a baby? Okay, here's another one. Can type 1 diabetes be prevented? Type 1 diabetes can't be prevented. Doctors can't even tell who will get it and who won't.
You said you had a parent. You said that you have a friend, and that friend's parent is healthy.
Yep. Because we were in private high school, everybody's parents were healthy. Yeah.
Can you hook me up with it? Because I want to verify this information. I'm calling you a liar.
Do you think that this is the best way to figure out like whose analysis here is medically accurate? Is to see who has a friend that may or may not disprove the story?
You said the damn friend, not me. And my thing is, I said prove it. Show me.
Okay, well, here you go. We can go and read a whole bunch.
That's another conversation you probably need to have with every conservative, because conservatives are really into anecdotes and they don't understand why those aren't valid. So, I mean, we have to discuss this if you're just talking with a conservative. Like, we need to demonstrate the fact. I can show you an anecdote for anything. Like, there are 7 billion people in the world. You don't think I can go find somebody who is healthy and has a kid with type 1 diabetes, and another one who has parents who are unhealthy and has a kid with type 1 diabetes? Of course I can. There's 7 billion people on Earth. We can show anecdotes for damn near anything. Give me anything that's we talk about that's remotely controversial, and I'll show you anecdotes on both sides. This should be the easiest point in the world to prove, and yet conservatives always rely on anecdotes. This is a fundamental You find this everywhere in conservative discourse. It's always, here's my anecdote, I have now proven my point. There's a bunch of things that affect people that they have no choice in. This is pretty obvious. There's genetics, there's unexplained things we don't understand, there's all kinds of stuff.
Bunch of shit on whether or not you can prevent type 1 or type 2 diabetes. Here's the link I just sent you. Type 1 diabetes can't be prevented. Doctors can't even tell who will get it and who won't. No one knows for sure what causes type 1 diabetes, but scientists think it has something to do with genes. But just getting the genes for diabetes isn't usually enough. In most cases.
But she doesn't believe your article because she's relying on personal experience. There's an epistemological difference here that needs to be addressed.
A child has to be exposed to something else, like a virus, in order to develop type 1 diabetes. It's not contagious, so kids and teens can't catch it from another person to pass it along to other friends or family members, and eating too much sugar doesn't cause type 1 diabetes.
I got it. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
Are you saying that cancer can't be prevented? And you say there's no cure? No, just answer the question.
Red herring.
No, of course cancer can be prevented.
And you saying cancer can't be cured?
Cancer can be cured and prevented.
So how is it that this is what I want to say? I'm going to say this, and we're going to move on because I told you I didn't come here for this.
Sure.
You're really good at getting people off.
Personal choice. If you or one of your loved ones have died, it's because they didn't try hard enough. Because it's all preventable.
They're square. And this is going to trigger you, but I deal with natural health, and I know from experience. Okay.
You will always find if somebody has problems with how they come to the conclusions of what is knowledge and what isn't. If they have problems in their epistemology, you will find those problems pop up in different areas of their life because it's a problem with how they think. This is why this education is so important. This is why it's so important to have reliable methodologies to determine what is knowledge and what isn't. Not just your intuition, not just your personal experience, not just your anecdotes. So this lady is extremely into natural health because she doesn't apply reliable methodologies. So she has in her personal experience, she sees people cured who are doing natural things, and not understanding that correlation doesn't imply causation, not understanding that she has a selection bias. She's not considering the people who didn't get better. Like there's a lot of, there's confirmation bias. There's self-reporting biases. There's a bunch of biases here that are coming to play in most of natural health. Now, it doesn't mean there isn't something to some of natural health. There is, but we have to rely on science for that. If anything that has an impact on our reality can be measured and tested by science. So especially health. These things are simple to test for. Anything that's actually valid, a valid principle in healthcare, can have science behind it. And if you don't have science, you could go to a university and get some students to just do a study. This is why anti-vaxxers need to put their money where their mouth is and fund research that proves their point. Because if they don't have any research, get the fuck out. This is a scientific topic. This is reality we're talking about. We can test this shit. And the funny thing is anti-vaxxers have actually done that. They have funded studies that, unfortunately, prove their position wrong. Which, of course, the whole thing about science is if it's done properly, using the actual methodologies of science, then it reflects reality and it rules out this human subjectivity. So it doesn't matter who's paying for it. If it's done properly, it's going to show what's actually real. And there's nothing to anti-vaxxers. So there you go. But anyway.
Okay, professionally and personally, that a lot of these diseases can be reversed. It has been done. I have done it. I have done it on myself.
Personal experience.
So I'm not going to when you deal with the medical profession, there's always going to be a cancer. Help me out. What is the name of the major with the cured? If the medical facilities actually make, and like I said, I don't want to go into this debate because I didn't come here for this shit.
Well, yeah, but I just brought it up as like a side point, and then you wanted to debate on me. So.
No, I mean I wanted to debate what I came here for, but you wanted to go down these rabbit holes, and you do that shit.
She's leading him around with red herrings, and he's chasing it, and then she accuses him of doing it. It's pretty pathetic. And I don't think she's doing it consciously either. I just, conversations wander if you're not keeping it on a specific lane with discipline. And that's what I try to do. I'm looking forward to trying a live debate with some people. I'm going to be looking for some people to talk with. Looking forward to it. I don't have a lot of experience in live debates. I'm really good in type debate. I'm really good at ignoring the red herrings. Somebody brings up something, it's like, okay, we'll talk about that. But this is more important. This is a foundational issue. Let's focus on this first. And that's an important, because you never make progress in a discussion if you're not willing to ignore the other points and focus on the foundational things that actually matter. Ignore the red herrings. That's a discipline if we want to learn to debate. Oh, yes. Are you skipping ahead, Jowser? Because Destiny actually talks about survivorship bias.
Did a lot. So fuck
No, okay,
so
firstly, wait. Let me back up real quick. You brought up a story about you going to the hospital and you being rewarded for something. I wanted to create a hypothetical. No, let me finish. Let me finish my point. I brought up a hypothetical where let's say somebody goes and they aren't rewarded in the same way that you are, but due to no fault of their own, and I use type 1 diabetes.
That you deflected.
No, I'm not
I was just
deflecting.
giving you my experience about healthcare, and you deflected on, well, what about it?
So it's a deflection to talk about what you brought up and try to show reasonable comparisons.
And what about it? Okay, how about we make a rule? Can we make a rule? No more whataboutism. No more hypotheticals.
We need hypotheticals to test our
Wow.
ideas. Otherwise, we can't have a real conversation.
Here's the thing. You deflect.
Dude,
like,
you're saying no hypotheticals. You're literally using anecdotes to do half your argument.
You get mad when I don't want to talk about it because I'm like, I didn't come here to talk about this. This is the thing. You do that. I said, you asked me about healthcare. And then I gave my personal experience about what I want to do about healthcare, and then your ass on myself, well, what about? Well, what about? Well, what? And then all of a sudden, when I get mad, I'm like, well, listen, I didn't come here to discuss this, but you took it there, and you admitted you took it there.
I took it there. Can I just explain my full thought process? Holy fucking AIDS in the fucking brain is what I'm developing right now. Okay, so which, by the way, might also be preventable if you don't get HIV. I believe that. Okay, so you brought up going to the hospital. Okay, so I asked you firstly. So this is all came from the question of what is the general goal of a policy. You asked me for specific, and I said healthcare. You gave me this 20-minute story that ended with you saying, I believe that I was rewarded for being healthy because when I went to the hospital, I qualified for a grant. When you say...
Whataboutism. She doesn't know what it is. So whataboutism is a Tukok logical fallacy, probably Tukoki? I don't know. I don't read Latin. That attempts to discredit an opponent's position by charging them with hypocrisy without directly refuting or disproving their argument. But he's bringing counterexamples that actually do disprove the argument. So this isn't whataboutism. This is directly relevant. Like, anytime somebody accuses you of a logical fallacy, I always ask people to demonstrate. Okay, if I committed a logical fallacy, demonstrate it. Define what the fallacy is, so I know you're not just throwing terms around, and then show how I committed that. And she wouldn't have been able to do that. Yeah, Dorian. I mean, live debate's entertaining. I think it can sway some people's minds. Live debating is typically like an actual debate where you have rules and set amounts of times for everybody. It's basically the WWE of intellectual discourse. I think having a more honest and looser discussion is with some with some rules that are more contribute to the kind of discourse you want to have are more important. So if you start with steel manning each other's positions, if you agree up front, which I've seen Destiny make people agree up front, that if I disagree with you on something, we're going to stop and discuss it right there. Because we actually want to progress towards truth, we can't be gish galloping. We can't be wandering all over the place. So if I disagree with you on one thing, I'm going to stop you right there and interrupt you. Actual debate formats don't let you do that, and that's one of the reasons it's the WWE of discourse. You need a looser format with some rules, like I'm allowed to interrupt you in order to have an honest discussion. If you're talking about intellectual honesty, it's definitely easier to demonstrate and do it in writing. And maybe someday I'll go through one of my debates I've had. I'll have to black out the other person's positions, names, unless they give me permission. But the problem with it, even though it's better for analytical people, it's better to demonstrate things. We can be more methodological. In spite of all that, you're less likely to change people's minds. There's quite a few studies on this. People don't change their mind based on what they read in text. It's not personal enough. It doesn't identify with you enough. It's too easy to read it with different tones. Most of communication happens through either body language or changes in tonality and stuff like this, and it doesn't come through in text. So for super analytical people, often who are higher on the autism spectrum, like most atheists and most extremely logical people, probably a lot of us, definitely. I'm not saying I'm autistic, but I took the autism spectrum test and I was higher on the spectrum than average. So a lot of us, we can engage in these and actually change our mind. We can engage them with just the content of the words. But for most people, I think you're more likely to change minds with an audible, spoken discussion than you are with a written debate. Yes, avoiding labels and buzzwords is important. It can be useful to educate people on it. So if you do bring up a term, I think it's important to either define it or explain it and how it affects. So you show an example of that fallacy in a different format and why that makes it false. If you can, like, the more you understand something, the better. I missed that comment about the bullet holes in World War II. I remember hearing something about that. That's an interesting study because, they wanted to reinforce where the bullet holes in planes were that came back, but the engineer said those parts don't matter because the plane came in and landed. So why reinforce those areas? Which is smart. It's survivorship bias. It's a good example. Yeah, I mean, typically, like, conservatives are typically not very educated on the methodologies of intellectual honesty, of how to be honest with yourself, with logic, and with fallacies and stuff like this. So when you call out these terms and accuse them of it, a lot of times they don't really know what you're talking about, and they'll feel kind of talked down to and patronized and condescended to that you're even using it. So it is better generally to avoid the terms and just explain why it's not valid. Trump became president with a 4th grade vocabulary. I think we can learn from that. We got to try to keep things a little more simple. And it's very true, especially when you're talking like labels, like ideological labels especially, that define people's tribes. Those are really important to avoid, because if I call myself a socialist, people who don't like socialists are immediately putting you in the socialist bucket, and now they're not listening to anything you say. They don't believe you. They don't trust you. They don't think it's valid. They have these walls of defenses up because the label itself serves as a mental shortcut for them, because we don't think through everything. So we rely on these shortcuts, these metaphors, these symbols. That's what language is. But if we can avoid that to some extent by just talking about the concepts. And when you get people to agree to certain things, people want to be consistent with themselves. So if somebody agrees that, I'm in favor of democracy, sure. And, I think we should have some democracy, some say in where we work. We spend a lot of our lives there. I mean, you can get them down one little move at a time until they're like, nothing wrong with worker co-ops. It's like, okay, well, that's socialism. Like, once you've got them to agree to some things, now you can pull out the label and kind of take the fear out of it, because they've already agreed with it, and you might have broken through a little bit and be able to talk about that better. So I think labels are important because we all need shortcuts. We can't just go around explaining everything in detail every single time we talk about it. But when you're first talking to people, you're trying to change the mind of it. It is better not to use those ideological, tribalistic type of labels. So, absolutely. So anyway, what about aboutism? She accuses him of it quite a bit.
A reward, what you're implying is that you did something to earn the advantage of having that grant. So my question was, if somebody else had all the same things as you and they worked hard and blah, 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 but let's say that they weren't healthy because of something outside of their control, like they had type 1 diabetes, do you think it would be fair for them to be turned down for the same grant that you were given? That was my question, because I'm trying to see if you really think that you should be rewarded for something that might be totally outside of your control. And you're you wanted to debate whether or not diabetes is even real, I guess, and then you wanted to debate on how to cure it. So now we're way off in some other world, not because of me, but because you wanted to go off into this other world, okay? I just wanted to give it
on to it. You're the one who take it to the other direction, Steven. Stop lying. You take it there. You even admit that you deflect and you go whataboutism. And I'm like,
I'm not admitting to whataboutism. A hypothetical is a valid way to see if what you're saying is factual. It's true. Do you actually believe it?
I did not. But then now you're lying saying I said that diabetes don't exist.
You said type 1 diabetes is something you get or you can prevent it. That's not true. We don't understand.
Look, if you're gonna, your Alzheimer's are kicking in again. I know what the fuck I said because I heard me say it.
Okay, can we take a minute?
Can you do some? Diabetes can be prevented.
Do you have any Reiki shit to cure me my Alzheimer's? Then you can probably cure.
Reiki, and I don't believe in Reiki.
You believe in curing Alzheimer's? Help me. What pill do I need to take that you're selling for $99.99 a pill in order to cure my shit? Please. Do I need to listen to Beethoven? Do I need to light some fucking incense candles? Like, what are you gonna do? Put a thing in my ear and suck the wax out or whatever? Like,
that doesn't work. That's a hoax.
Okay, gotcha. Can I ask you a question? I'm super curious.
No,
wait,
no,
please. I'm curious, and it'll give you a chance to talk. Okay, you can. Okay, tell me if you have an idea and somebody brings up a conflicting idea to you. How do you verify like who's right or wrong? Like, how do you make sure? So I don't know if you worry about this. I worry about this all the time. At the end of the day, I'm like, man, I wonder.
Yes, epistemology. How do you know what is knowledge and what isn't?
I'm full of shit sometimes. Maybe I'm actually being.
Well, you are. I can go ahead and answer that.
Yeah, no. So I'm curious. So how do you verify if your own thoughts are like valid? If you're like being correct? Like, how do you know that you're not like being full of your own stuff? I'm curious.
Well, a lot of times I don't have a I have people in my surroundings that are pretty cruel, blunt, and so I come to them with those thoughts and ask for their opinion. And because they're not here to kiss my ass and they're pretty straight, no chaser, that basically gives me the answer I'm looking for.
Okay, so you go to people in your surroundings to figure out if your choices are good or bad. What if those people...
Not always, but if I'm conflicting on it. If
sure.
I'm conflicting,
I'm going to ignore the insanely hilarious take here because I could say, well, what about kids in the hood that grow up and drug dealers around them tell them to deal drugs, and that's why they do it, and they're using the same system that you're using, but apparently yours is okay and theirs isn't.
Whataboutism. Not whataboutism. It's a perfectly legitimate comparison. Like, we're talking about epistemology here. You're saying that how you know what your opinions are valid is you go to your friends and you ask them, and since you believe that they don't kiss your ass, which, come on, all friends kiss your ass to some certain degree. If you don't think so, then, just because they're blunt sometimes doesn't mean they're always blunt, and just because they're blunt doesn't mean their opinion is relevant. So he makes the perfectly legitimate comparison. Okay, let's say you have really good friends that give you really good advice. What if somebody else applies the exact same epistemology and they go and talk to their friends, but their friends give them shit advice? That's clearly not a reliable methodology, unless you have another methodology that lets you test your friends' knowledge. Like, what is that next level? That would have been a good question.
Oh, okay, we can do that. Go ahead. What?
Well, you're basically telling me that like you're a product of your environment. So if you had a bunch of shitty friends around you that like started talking a bunch of shit.
I never said I was a product of my environment.
So how do you know that what they're telling you is good or bad? How can you tell if what the advice you're getting is real or if they're just blowing smoke at your ass? How do you know?
Well, basically, if it depends on the situation. See, the thing about it is that I have to think of a situation because it doesn't happen all the time. So
yeah, sure. Okay, here's an example then. How do you feel about vaccines?
Here's my thing. If people, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. Okay. If people want to get vaccinated.
It's funny how often people say, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but
vaccines, then they get vaccines. But if you don't want to get vaccines, I believe that, because I've seen this done before, people who don't want to be...
If you don't think vaccines should be mandatory, you are anti-vaxxer. You don't understand the whole purpose of vaccinations and why it's important that everybody gets them. You're anti-vaxxer if you don't think that they should be mandatory.
Vaccinated do not enroll into public schools, and they do not gather around vaccinated communities, or kids. They tend to have, like, there is a school up Atlanta's about 2 hours away from me. There's a school because there's a big Hebrew Israelite community which they don't believe in vaccinations. And Jehovah's Witness, and you have a lot of religious organizations that will come together with their, because the parents have not been vaccinated, they don't vaccinate their children, so they have this commune. So my thing is that, well, you're not infringing on the rights of those who don't want to be vaccinated, and they are not mixing with the children who are vaccinated.
So you think it's really possible for a population of people to never interact with, like, that they could actually stay like locked off from the rest of society for...
I didn't say they locked off. I just said that the kids... from my understanding, engaging with these people, once they get into their teens, that's when they start to enroll into, they have community sports, and they have other activities.
Do you think they should be banned from enrolling in or interacting with people at large? Like,
no.
Then what do you do to the people that say, hey, people are dying now in society because you didn't get vaccinated. Now we have measles in society.
How is someone else dying because that you got to prove to me that if
so sometimes when children are born, sometimes their immune systems can't support receiving vaccine.
So when somebody says you have to prove to me, but you haven't first clarified what standards of evidence they would accept. You haven't talked about the epistemology. How do you prove something? Do you want me to just go get opinions of friends to prove this? Like, you'll see that she doesn't take other forms of evidence.
Vaccines. There are certain numbers of people that, for whatever reasons in society, have problems and make it so that they can't become vaccinated. So if these people are relying on everyone else around them being vaccinated, if they're exposed to people that aren't and are carrying certain deadly diseases like measles, then they're probably going to die.
The people in this community have nothing to do with that. I'm trying to see how that's once again, you're doing a false
because those people in
equivalency
the
again.
community are choosing not to be vaccinated against vaccinatable diseases.
And how are they killing other people?
Because
like,
if
how
they
is
get a
how is
disease
somebody-
that could have been prevented, and then they come into contact with somebody else that gives that person
But they
disease.
don't.
So you do believe that it's possible that they can stay locked off from all of society forever?
They're not locked off. You're acting like they are in a cult. They're not.
So if they interact with other people, they can pass on diseases like measles to those other groups of people.
I didn't see any evidence for that.
Do you see evidence that measles is returning to places in the world where it previously wasn't? Do you want me to link you articles, or?
That has nothing to do with this community. You're asking me about a specific community, and you can't sit up here and bring something broad, irrelevant to this discussion when I'm talking about this specific community. You say, well, what if they interact with other children and they get them sick? I said, I've never seen that.
So dumb.
So this data you want to bring into is irrelevant. I'm telling you what I've observed.
Okay, well,
I'm
let me tell you what's
my
being reported. So the
interaction.
United States is experiencing a measles outbreak, including in Southern California. This country is experiencing the largest measles outbreak in 20 years. This includes Los Angeles County. Many of the initial cases were unvaccinated individuals who traveled abroad and then brought the measles back to the United States, infecting other unvaccinated individuals.
What does that have to do with the community? I mean, I should have stopped you before you start reading it, but I'm not disputing what you're saying. What I'm telling you is I am observed. You ask me questions and I'm giving you answers, and then you're like, hey, sit there and let me read you some shit that has nothing to do with your story. And I'm like, what?
Because my initial question is whether or
How is she named Tree of Logic? God damn.
not these people should be banned from interacting with other people if they choose not to get vaccinations because
And
they
you
cause harm.
cannot provide any evidence that these particular people that I observe has contaminated anybody else. You have no evidence for that.
Okay,
So
well,
you
here's another
cannot
story.
ban them.
This has to do
I
with-
don't want to hear no story unless you're going to tell me about the people.
So, theories of knowledge. She doesn't accept the fact that what's valid in some communities of humans would be valid in other communities of humans. Like, this is something you've got to just ask. Like, you don't think we all have like the same DNA? You don't think we're all one species? You don't think what happens to one community of people has relevance to another community of people? This is amazing shit right here. She's claiming it's not relevant because we're not talking about this specific community of people in Atlanta, Georgia. And this
I have
amazing.
observed.
So if I don't have, what about, so this is about an Amish community in Ohio. Does this matter or do you not care?
Are these the black people I observe up there in Atlanta? No. Then why is this relevant? Why is this relevant? I'm telling you about this commune I have observed. You ask me a question and then you do with the whataboutism. Stop it. Get help. I'm not playing that game with you. I'm telling you about this community I observed in Atlanta, dealing with Hebrew Israelites, Jehovah's Witness, a lot of these religious blacks that decide to come together as a community. I'm telling you about them, and you want to tell me about some white Amish? How the hell is that? How the hell?
Okay,
is
this is a report from the
relevant?
Health and Human Services, okay? The Georgia health officials confirmed 3 cases of measles in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution by Sheila Poole. Georgia health officials on Tuesday confirmed 3 cases of measles, all within the same metro Atlanta family.
And how many people do we have in Atlanta?
Well, before we had no measles, so I don't know.
No. Answer my question. Stop deflecting. Tell me the population.
how's it deflected? They need to talk about some rules of discourse and like how reasonable discourse is supposed to happen, because she clearly doesn't understand that. Right. It's just amazing shit. You see what I mean? This is why I want to watch this. Like, we were just talking about epistemology in our last stream, and this is like textbook example of how you're never going to make progress in discussion if you don't make progress on the underlying epistemological disagreements you have.
Of Atlanta, since you want to sit up here and say, oh, we got 3 people. So fucking what? Tell me the population of Atlanta.
500,000.
500,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you want to talk about 3 people.
How
I'm just going to start putting my chair together.
many did you have
And-
before? 0. So it's a pretty big,
Wait, wait,
undefined
wait,
increase.
no.
Okay.
How did, no. You have no evidence for that. You have no idea. If you have no idea about the people who have the measles, how did they get it? Are you saying that these people are not vaccinated? You don't have no evidence for that.
The United States. So indigenous measles has been declared eliminated in North,
The
Central,
three-
and
no,
South
give me
America.
give me
The last
give me
endemic
health
case in the
records of
region
the 3 people
was
who had the measles.
What are you
Give me
asking
the health.
for?
You
Do
brought them
understand?
up.
You don't care about like what's really
No.
not. You just care about the
Bring
shit that
up-
you've seen that has to like
no,
conform with like your
no,
view of the
you
world.
can't sit up here
You're
and bring
actually
3
crazy.
people and
Wait, no.
say,
Do you
got
realize?
'em.
No.
3
Do you
people had
realize?
measles, and out of 500,000
You're
people
actually
that
insane.
got 'em, show me the health records
You're
of those
actually
3
insane. Do you understand that? Or do you ever worry about that? That you are legitimately crazy. That like you have no way of verifying if anything you know is real or not real. You can't do it.
Nice deflection.
I'm not
motherfucker.
deflecting. Look at all these words you keep hiding behind. Deflection, whataboutism, pivot, change the subject. Like you can't address a single point that I'm bringing up.
You do this pivoting all the time.
I haven't
Remember,
pivoted on
we started-
anything.
You have because we wasn't.
I'll be sitting on this on Friday. Looking forward to it. Looks very comfortable.
we were talking about this commune.
Why do you want to talk about just one thing? Look, here's another story. New York confronts its worst measles outbreak in decades.
Into this community, and you have no idea, and you can't even prove that the 3 out of 500,000 people in Atlanta have anything to do with that community. You have no proof of that. You have none. And you're just jumping all over the fucking place. And I want you to stop it and get some help. You know what I'm saying? You know, get a bubble bath, get some massage, do something with yourself, Steve, because I want you to stop this. Moving the goalposts all over the fucking place. I want to get back on the topic of what I came here for. Because you want to sit up here and bring up some irrelevant shit to the community I'm talking about. What about the Amish? What about California? What about these 3 people? What the fuck does that have to do?
Sorry, are those not other communities of humans?
With the community I'm talking about? Nothing. Not a damn thing.
Not a damn thing in common. These are completely different species. Amazing.
Do you understand the value of extracting from a specific situation, getting like a general idea to apply to other situations?
Understand relevancy?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking about.
No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't.
Pretty sure
because,
I do.
Please explain to me. Mm-hmm. What did those 3 cases have to do with the community that I was talking about?
You asked me if there were problems in Atlanta. I don't know what specific...
I did not ask you. Stop
I don't know what specific...
I did not ask you shit.
I don't know what specific community you're talking about, but we can take their general ideas and attitudes to...
Anyway, do you guys want to keep listening to this, or do we have other things to talk about? Don't want to be boring you guys, because it kind of... I mean, you're getting the point, I think, of how these differences come into play. So maybe we should just talk about that. Maybe we should talk about how you can have these disagreements. Let me think about when I was a conservative evangelical, and all my positions were contradicted by science. It's not like I knew they were contradicted by science. I thought that my positions were actually scientific because I've seen scientists make those points. People who claim to be scientists who have letters after their name. But just because you can find 1 or 2 scientists who agree with your position doesn't mean there is any science whatsoever that supports your position. So, you know, it might be worthwhile to get into some philosophy of science shit if you're talking to somebody like this, because I think if somebody explained scientific methodology to me sooner, it might have been beneficial. Because the whole point of science is that it controls against human subjectivity. It controls against opinions. So when you present individual scientist opinions as science, you're fundamentally not understanding what science is. One scientist's opinion on a topic is never science. They have to have research backing up their shit that's peer-reviewed to make sure the methodology is actually solid. Otherwise, it's not science. And, I mean, we should all understand how revolutionary the scientific method was. Like, not much changed realistically between, like, the days of the ancient Greeks and the early 1600s. Like, there wasn't a whole lot to change. Like, there were still horse and carriages. You know, there's some improvements in metal technology, I suppose. You know, but pretty basically, civilization, from a technological standpoint, was pretty similar. And then some philosophers and Enlightenment thinkers started formalizing scientific method. And one of, I think, the most important phrases that there has ever been in the human language, like, to me, I think the scientific method is right up there in the short list of like 5 things that differentiate us from animals. Like, the fact that we learned how to organize our thinking in this way is so foundational. We learn to get past our bias, past our subjectivity, by this phrase, nullius in verba. This was the phrase of the Royal Society. They chose the motto back in 1660, and it means on the word of no one, or take nobody's word for it. This is the foundation of legitimate skepticism. This is the foundation of science. Take the word of no one. That is science. So if you're taking an individual scientist's opinion, you're violating nullius in verba, which is the foundation of the Enlightenment, and all the technology we enjoy today and all the knowledge of nature we enjoy today. You're violating that if you're taking someone's word for it. But scientific method is, it's not, we learn some basics of scientific methodology in school about building a hypothesis, testing the hypothesis. It needs to be reproducible, steps like this. But there's actually it's quite a lot more advanced when you get into the philosophy of science, because there's a lot of methodologies that are relevant to certain fields and not to others. So there's a lot to learn there, but in a basic rule, there's hypothesis, there's testing the hypothesis, there's doing the tests in a way that's reproducible by other people, and there's peer review. And the peer review is a crucial process because other scientists can try to reproduce your results, and they can change variables and test the methodology, and they can see if it actually holds true in all of it. Well, you do have to set some rules. So, I mean, you can see Destiny do this in a couple of his streams. I think he did it in his debate with Kent Hovind, because creationists are famously bad at... Oh, what up, Theory? Welcome in. Kent Hovind and all creationists are famously bad at the Gish Gallop, or famously good at it, you might say. And the Gish Gallop is actually named after creationist Dwayne Gish, because he was so good at it. And because of that, when he did his debate, he made him agree up front that if you say something I disagree with, I'm going to interrupt you. And if I say something you disagree with, you can interrupt me. And that's a simple rule that they started the debate with. So you can do that, and you have to do it. You can't necessarily get into a ton of topics, but you got to set some simple ground rules. And if you're having a discussion like this and these norms keep getting violated, it might be because they're not accepting those norms. Maybe you got to stop the conversation and be like, okay, I'm presenting evidence and you're not accepting it. So let's talk about evidence and what counts as valid evidence. Like, what is science to you, etc. So, Theory, if you just got here, this debate, I was listening to this today and I was like, wow, this is so apropos to the discussion we had on epistemology on Monday, because the person Destiny is debating has a fundamentally different theory of knowledge than Destiny does, and it keeps coming up. And since they never actually make progress on those fundamental disagreements, they never get anywhere, and they both get extremely frustrated. So it's really good stuff. She only accepts personal experience. She doesn't accept experts' views on things. She doesn't. She's just making an argument about vaccines, about how these other communities of people aren't relevant, because I was talking about this community of people, which is like they're all humans. Like, you don't think of what's relevant to one group of humans is relevant to another group of humans when we're talking about science. It's amazing shit. So anyway, a lot of good. We're witnessing in real time here how they have a different opinion on what counts as knowledge, and that's something we have to be able to. We need to make the arguments for epistemology and different philosophical topics that come up. We need to understand why they're important well enough to be able to debate for them, because that's the foundational issue that is disagreed upon here. Another one that came up was free will versus determinism, and because I've talked about how conservatives are advocates for free will, and liberals, leftists tend to be more believers in environmental conditions and determinism. And it was like a model textbook case of this. So good stuff. And I think we have to get people to understand the impact of environment. And we got to keep pushing that if that kind of disagreement comes up. So I think Destiny did a pretty decent job on that. But if you have a foundational disagreement like that, I don't think there's a point to moving on if you haven't gotten the other person to accept that they might be wrong there. So, on the free will and determinism thing, you have to keep pushing that. It's like, so why did you make this decision? Oh, because your parents taught you that. Okay, so like, was that a personal choice on your part? Like, how is that not part of the environment? What if your parents were, meth heads? Do you think you would have made the same decision, et cetera, et cetera? So, yeah, I've had to use the amazing a few times here because this shit's amazing. Anyway, good stuff. I'm not going to be on a squeaky chair on Friday, Theory. I got a new chair. I'm putting it together right now. Looking forward to it. So, anyway, I think we're kind of done with the debate. We've been going for an hour and a half. What else? What else can we talk about? Was there anything else that came up in the debate that we should discuss more? Yeah, I think if somebody had explained scientific method to me more, I would have understood it sooner, and probably by applying that thinking, if it actually changed my paradigm, I probably would have come to the left sooner, because the right fundamentally does not understand science. They think that somebody who's a scientist and their opinion counts as science, which is not true. And it's, you can't blame them. That we have a crap education system, A, and B, we have limited time energy. And science gets complicated. It's not easy. So if you want to talk about some basic rules of critical thinking that work as kind of a heuristic, a time-saving thought device, a really good one is that we have to accept the expert consensus on a topic, given a couple of variables. So if you observe a field of thought, like, say, evolution, biology, and there are hundreds of thousands of people all over the world from different walks of life, different cultures, different religions, and whenever they study an issue, and they take a significant portion of their life, decades, to study an issue, they all come to the same conclusions. And you think those conclusions are wrong without having studied it yourself, you're never going to be right. Like, every scientific consensus that was ever successfully challenged was challenged by an expert to the community of experts. It's not done by one person to lay people, and it's not lay people's opinions. It doesn't happen that way. It never has. No, it's true too. Yeah. Right wing's very into hierarchy, Dorian. The idea that science equals the opinion of a scientist plays into the fact that right-wingers are really married to hierarchy. No, thanks for that tip, Theory. I was pausing it for the most part. I might have piped in a couple of Masons while it wasn't paused. But you can see the title up here on my... Actually, no, I'm sorry. I didn't change the screen. There it is. This is the one we were talking about. You Are Unbearable, Destiny Debates Tree of Logic, which is very poorly so named. I gotta remember to change my screen. I've been stuck on the Wikipedia here for a while, haven't I? Ugh. So, I have been working on some basic rules for critical thinking for like areas where you don't have a whole lot of time, and deferring to the expert consensus is, I think, a really easy one to defend. And it's a really necessary one. Like, if you don't have the time to become a legitimate expert in a topic yourself, then you can't make a rational case for why you should dismiss the expert consensus. I think the only variables that might play into that is if you're talking about a field where the experts have a very strong vested interest in something. So if we're talking about, the validity of socialism, and you're only going to talk to the experts who are politicians who get funded by oligarchs, then that's not really an expert consensus. We're talking about academic experts typically. And another example might be, I wouldn't ask a community of theologians whether God exists, because if God doesn't exist, then they don't really have a job. Of course, they have a vested interest in that, which actually theology does get into more topics, and there's more philosophy in it. And there are atheist theologians, but I still think the majority of them probably accept the existence of God. So there are instances where you can make a case for arguing against an expert consensus, but it's in fields where the experts have clearly not made a case for it, and they clearly have a vested interest in it being true. Since they got here, why don't I just let this play a little bit longer? Get some more good stuff out of here.
Vaccinations, and we could apply it to other groups of people.
And explain them to you. You mean tell me you wasn't listening, or you suffering from?
I don't give a fuck about what specific tiny community you're talking about.
Because that's what I was talking about. You kept asking me,
Okay,
and then you.
I don't care. I don't give a fuck about anybody in your city. Why would I only want to have a conversation about a specific?
You asking me about
I'm not asking you about him. I don't give a fuck about Atlanta. The only thing I know about Atlanta is I gotta wait in that shit ass fucking airport when I'm transferring flights. That's all I know about Atlanta is the shithole that is fucking ATL. And and you're somehow making that part of my existence worse because now the ATL shithole might have fucking measles in it. Holy shit! You've actually found a way to take an issue I don't care about and make my existence worse off for it, even though I don't give a fuck about your shit ass city.
Have the measles, and therefore when they have them, they basically do not associate with those people with the measles. And so that's what I was talking with them. And then you want to bring California, then you want to bring in the Amish, then you want to bring in 3 other people that have nothing to do with what I just said.
Do you understand the importance of taking an idea out of a specific scenario to provide it to other scenarios?
If it's irrelevant, it doesn't work.
What are some ways that we can determine whether or not it's relevant or irrelevant?
By going to that exact group.
So you can only look at one exact group. You can never extrapolate.
We're talking about that one group.
No, we're not. I don't give a fuck about that one group. We're talking about the ideas of being anti-vaccination.
You don't want to talk about it, but I'm talking about it because that is the only group I have observed. That's the only group I have observed that have not been vaccinated.
So do you think the only way to gather information about communities is to directly observe them?
I am not gathering information about communities. I am.
Yeah, so the epistemological disagreement they have here is what counts as evidence and what's relevant to the issue. So she's trying to say she knows this community of people who don't vaccinate in Atlanta, and they don't seem to have diseases, and she's disregarding any evidence from other communities as if it's not relevant. Like, we're not all humans, and we're not all the same species, and we don't all react the same way to germs. I guess it's a really weird discussion, but basically all through this whole debate she's been talking about how her personal experience is all that she's really willing to grant credence to. Like, she's some extreme skeptic or something and doesn't trust other people, which is common in the conservative wing of things because they buy into conspiracy theories. They don't trust elitists. They're really hesitant to believe expert consensuses because the expert consensus is almost always against their position. So it feeds into all that.
I'm telling you about this particular community. I am being
and I'm trying to talk about
the idea. You want to take something that I am specific about and make it broad. No, you won't. No,
okay,
you
well,
won't.
in California, I know a community of Jewish, Hebrewites, Israelites, whatever the fuck they're called, okay? And they're all anti-vaxxers, and they all died from measles yesterday. I know that community.
Okay,
yep.
Moving on.
Yep, because
okay.
they were anti-vax, okay? Got it.
Okay.
All right, so now we know that shit is bad and they should all be forced to vaccinate. I knew 3 groups like that in Nebraska that were all anti-vax and then they all died, okay? So there we go. I win the debate. All right, what's the next thing you want to move on to?
And your point is?
That people should be forced to get vaccinations, otherwise it causes everybody to die.
Okay.
Okay, I'm glad we can agree. All right, what's the next thing you want to talk about?
I didn't that shit. Fuck you.
Yeah, don't contradict me. You didn't directly observe the groups of people I saw. Have you ever seen fucking World War Z? That zombie shit? That was a fucking documentary of what happened in Iowa when people didn't get vaccinated. Yep, zombie shit, man.
It's vaccines and anti-vaxxers. So it is an epistemological debate, though. So she is saying that she only accepts personal experience and her experience of this community. So he's saying, well, if we're going to use this as our methodology, and this is how we get to what's knowledge, then you should, and you expect me to take your word for it, you should be willing to take my word for my experience. So I'm going to make up a lot of crazy shit, now you have to believe me. So he's showing that that's not a reliable methodology, and using extreme examples, and of course, surprise, surprise, she doesn't get the point. Oh, and they also talked about how accurate bump stocks are for like 10 minutes, which is, I mean, it's not a fruitful debate at all, but I thought it was a useful one to discuss from a rhetorical and epistemological place, because those principles just keep coming up.
And it was real as fuck. I saw it with my own eyes, and you can't contradict it because I saw it, I observed it, and you didn't. So fuck off.
If you observe it and saw it, then fine. I'm not going to sit up
Good.
here
I'm
and
glad we can
challenge
agree
that.
that zombies
See,
are real
you
then.
have a problem with what I observed, and
Okay.
you try to frame it to
You're
meet
right.
your narrative.
That's why I won't make
I'm
that
not
mistake
playing
again.
that
As
game.
long as you honor my observations, I'll honor yours. Okay.
I
That's
didn't
great.
honor your observation.
Wait, so you're telling me I didn't see zombies in Iowa?
My thing is that your observation is your observation. I have nothing to do with
Wait,
it.
okay,
I'm nothing. I feel nothing about your observation. I don't feel you happy about it. I don't feel sorry for it. I'm not against it. I'm not for it. I'm nothing it. I feel nothing for that. Would you want me to cry for that? No, I feel nothing. I'm only going by what my experience is. All right, can we get into? Dude, oh my God. Anyway,
If I go to a bar, okay.
I know.
Wait, can I ask a question? No, wait, I just want to ask a question. I'm super curious.
I want to talk about what I came here
I don't
for.
want to talk about
what
it. I just want to ask.
She like literally refuses to let him talk about it, and they argue for a few minutes here, and then that was the end of where I got to. But speaking of rules of discourse, I've been working on this, and I've added a few things. I'm not finished with it, but I forget if I went over this in my last stream or not. But these are, I think, some good rules for discourse to have if we're going to have a conversation with somebody. Begin with values, and I don't know if the order is going to be right. I might change it around, but you got to begin with values. And Destiny did at one point try to get into that, because he was asking her, what is the goal of your policies? What is important to you? And that's one way of asking, what are your values? And that clearly didn't get very far. But perhaps if he was a little bit more explicit about it. But she was refusing to speak in generalities, and she's not being a good faith debater while continually accusing him of not being a good faith debater. But if we don't all value truth and the methodologies that lead there, and well-being from behind the veil of ignorance, two main values, I think, then that's what we got to talk about. So anytime these kind of things come up, where somebody's clearly not using and valuing the methodologies of critical thinking and reliable thought and epistemology, then that's what you got to talk about. There's no point going to other topics, because those epistemological differences will keep coming up, as we've witnessed in this debate. She has a different way of viewing knowledge, and it keeps coming up no matter what topic they go to. They go from gun control to what's a Democrat, what's a Republican. They go to healthcare and all these other topics, and yet these same differences in how they view knowledge keep following them around. Yeah, the valuation of experts and dismissing information. And that's something we got to talk about. There was a book, something about the death of expertise, and it's, the way the United States and much of the world is slipping into this anti-intellectualism where we don't trust experts anymore. I mean, that's why climate change is such a problem, is because nobody's listening to the damn experts. Anyway, so, I mean, if we can't agree, and the funny thing is, she was the one who was trying to make this point early on. She was saying that if you're not willing to admit when you're wrong, then what's the point of having discussion? Which is amazing that she would do that when she's so refusing to admit she's wrong on anything. But that is a point that needs to be made in a reasonable discussion, and we need to loop back to it. We got to be like, okay, wait a second. Like, you said this, and I showed evidence here, and you're not admitting you're wrong. So, like, we shouldn't go on unless you can either counter my point or admit that you're wrong. Because if you're not willing to admit you're wrong and you can't counter my point, what's the point of talking about some other topic? I think it's useful to talk about the nature of the debate in advance. Because there's different ways you can debate things. So she says she wants to talk about police brutality, which they haven't got to yet. I think they touch on that in the rest of the debate. But like, what type of debate do you want to have? Are you just going to talk about a lot of anecdotes? Do you have a one-hit knockout against the liberals' case for police brutality being disproportionate for black people? Like, what type of debate are we talking about here? Are you trying to build a cumulative case with a lot of different anecdotes or with some statistics? Let's be clear about that. Let's agree if the other person says something we disagree with, we have the right to interrupt before the other person goes on to another point. This is something Destiny does really well. It's something Aaron Ra does really well. When he has debates that aren't like actually formal debates, like when he's on a radio station or something, he's going to always... He's more than willing to look like an asshole, but you have to stop people before they go on to 20 different points. Because you can... somebody can spout 20 different points of bullshit way faster than you can properly counter one of them. Tom Nicholas. I'm not familiar with it. Are you talking about the, what did I say, the death of experts? Something like that? I'm probably butchering the title. I never read the book. I've heard about it. But I identified with the articles talking about it because that's clearly a problem. People don't trust experts, and it's amazing. Is this the channel?
Hi, my name's Tom. Welcome back to my channel and to another episode of What...
Death of the author. What the theory? Wow, this sounds like competition to theory played here. What the theory? Wow. Interesting. Yeah, looks like a good channel there, Dorian. I'll have to check it out. Let's see. Like, if we're honest and we both value truth, and you make an argument and we demonstrate that it fails, we have to agree to not use it again. Otherwise, we're not progressing the discussion. Like, whether or not you believe on the point, you agree on the point, we should be able to agree on the validity and soundness of the argument. So, if I demonstrate your argument fails, and then go on to say your point is wrong, that's what's called the fallacy. Just because somebody makes a fallacious argument does not make their point wrong. It just means the argument is not a valid argument. So now you have a burden of proof on your claim. You proposed an argument, it failed, so you still have a burden of proof. That is how it actually works. It doesn't mean your point's wrong. It means you haven't demonstrated your point. You haven't justified your point. So that argument failed. Let's agree to never use it again if we value truth, unless you can counter the way that I just destroyed your argument. If not, then we have to agree that it's failed and agree to not use it anymore. Now, what else you got? And if you don't have anything else, then sorry, you're done, because there's a burden of proof and you failed it. And I think starting with a steel man and other position is a good idea. And I have been thinking about that. I've said before it's hard to steel man certain really dumb topics, which is true. But I think in my head I'm thinking of a steel man as trying to make the position logical and reasonable when it's not. But I don't think that's necessarily what a steel man is. It's just putting the position in the case and the argument for it in as charitable way as you can. So I don't need to make like Christianity reasonable. I just need to demonstrate in a charitable fashion your position. Hey, have a good night, Theory. So yeah, when somebody presents an argument, before I get into the argument, I want to talk about whether if I give you the argument for the sake of argument, is that getting us where you want to go? Is it even relevant? Like a lot of the stuff that Tree of Logic here is bringing up, a lot of her arguments and counterpoints aren't even relevant. So that's something you got to talk about before you try to nitpick the arguments themselves. Because if it's not even if the conclusion doesn't matter, then let's not waste time with it. Like, most of the art of debating is avoiding red herrings, in my opinion, because I think a lot of us people who value truth, a lot of liberal leftists, etc., we value truth. We're analytical. We're skeptics. We know a little thing or two about how we think and how we're supposed to think, how to be intellectually honest. And since we care about this stuff so much, it makes us really vulnerable to chasing red herrings, because we see something somebody says something wrong and we chase it. I think what's this now? Is it 3 Hours of the Alt-Right Playbook? He talks about this, because when they're in trouble, they will drop out a red herring. They'll say something stupid on a separate topic to bait you into switching positions and chasing after that, because they're losing on this topic. And the art of debate for us is to avoid those and stay on the most foundational points and ignore the peripheral. And it's not that difficult when you explain yourself. And it's like, if they avoid you trying to be evasive, it's like, no, this is the core foundational disagreement. Don't you see this? Like, you're arguing for choice. I'm arguing that the environment has this factor. So I'm not avoiding this topic. If you're trying to change it to peripheral details, you're the one that's avoiding the core topic. This is a debate that's been being had by philosophers for thousands of years. And whether or not we break the free will versus determinism discussion now, we can at least agree as to what extent the environment plays a role, because everybody who studies this agrees, like all the psychologists, all the sociologists agree environment plays a significant role. You'd have to be an idiot not to accept that. So that's a point we can make without proving hard determinism. So anyway, that's a good example. And then, yeah, you get into the details of the argument. So anyway, I appreciate you guys being here. I don't have anything else to talk about. I don't think we need to finish this debate. You guys are welcome to watch it through yourself. It's you might want to commit self-harm after it, or maybe you're entertained by it. So depending on your tolerance for such things, you can decide whether or not you want to pursue that. But what other comments do we have? I've been wondering, I wanted your guys' input, Dora and Jowser, whoever else is in here, on what kind of things you'd like to talk about. What the kind of things you'd like this channel to talk about the most. So I appreciate recommendations. If you see a video that you like, or that you don't like, either way, that you want to be commented on or streamed, let me know. I put forth a pretty aggressive streaming schedule for myself to start out with, and some recommendations to help me along with content are appreciated. So I'm glad to talk about personal things, and we talked about weight loss. We can talk about relationships. We can talk about getting a promotion at work. There's a lot of this kind of stuff we can talk about, problem solving that's actually pragmatically relevant. I'm glad to talk to you guys on Discord, and recorded or not. And if you want to see more response videos, more politics, let me know what you're interested in and what you want to see from the channel. I appreciate it. And if you're watching this after it's live, please put in a comment. I'd like to hear what you think, and what your critiques are, and what you'd like to see, and what would bring you back, and all that kind of good stuff. So I would really like to start a solid community of people who value truth and value community. So that's what my Discord server is all about. Hopefully, we need to actually build it to a point where there's enough people on it. Most times they have discussions, but we want to have a group of people who value intellectual honesty, and use that intellectual honesty, that problem solving, that methodology, and we can apply those to personal situations to make us better people, and also just to have community, because you don't always have to be trying to better life. Sometimes we just want to relax and hang out. That's cool too. So we want to hang out and play games and relax and all that kind of stuff. No, you're good, Jowser. Don't ever apologize. This is something I don't want to do. There's a lot of people who guilt people, and this is something liberals do a lot, and shame individuals, and you shouldn't use plastic straws, and you shouldn't do this, and you shouldn't say that, and you should do more, and you should be helping these people. And life's tough. We can only do so much. Don't feel bad for what you're doing. We can work to improve ourselves when we have the time, energy to do so. Otherwise, let's just enjoy life. What the hell? Ain't no point having false guilt over shit. So, absolutely. All right, well, thanks so much for coming by. And if you have comments later, let me know. If you want to hang out in Discord or have a question, you can just drop it in the Discord. I think you guys are both in there. So let me know. And thank you, and have a good night.